Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of the Suicide Squad Isekai, or is it just Suicide Squad Isekai? Great series premiere. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It is so wild, because I'd seen the original teaser for this, so I knew this was a thing. I didn't know it was a TV show. I thought it was a movie, so that was kind of an interesting development when it was like, oh, randomly found out it dropped a couple days ago at the time you're recording this. But either way, or at least the first 3 episodes. I love the animation style, and it's so weird seeing like the anime versions of characters. Like Harley fits perfectly, but looking at Joker looks like an anime F-boy, you know? So it's so wild. But it also this tall, kind of like any good isekai, which I don't have that much experience with a lot of traditional anime isekais, because you kind of forget isekai is the go-to term, but it's oh yeah, there's so many stories that predate the term isekai that are isekais. They kind of reference some later on in the story. I was oh yeah, technically that would fall under the category of an isekai, you know? Either way, tangents and all that aside, but Harley and Joker want to get free of this world. I mean, they want to change this world because it's oh, it's stale, it's unfair, them being the beings of chaos that they are. So they ended up robbing a place, left people with bombs to them to explode. I was curious if we were going to get any superheroes at all, but it doesn't seem like we're just sticking to the villain side, because it seems what pops this all off is Amanda Waller trying to open a gate to another world, because at first I was why would you want to open up another world? But it's oh, it's another place you get. Well, some of the conversation later on seems like it's about resources, you can pluck resources from another world. It seems like someone's the foundation for it. I'm curious who. We saw a body, and there were clearly boobs. So it's a woman. So I'm are they going to kind of do the Enchantress situation from the first Suicide Squad movie, the David Ayer one? So I'm are they kind of pulling from that in that regard? So I'm wondering if that's supposed to be Enchantress. Because there's a character, at the very end of the episode, we didn't get to see all the characters. One of them, definitely looked like it was Killer Croc, but I couldn't tell some of the other ones. We had to wait to get a better look. But one of them, I was wondering if that was supposed to be Enchantress. So it could still be her, but I don't know. Maybe it's going to be a mystery reveal on who that person. It might not even be someone we know. Maybe it's someone from another world that got captured. But I'd assume it'd have to be someone that's DC related that Waller captured to open a portal to another world. So, once again, my knowledge about DC is slightly, very minusculely above average. So I'm not going to be able to give you some immediate pull oh, it's this person, this person, this person. Just because of the Suicide Squad movies, I'm immediately thinking maybe Enchantress, but who knows. Either way, I love that the car they're riding in, Joker and Harley, is it's run by organ, piano, whatever you want to call it. That's the steering wheel. That's wild. And just Joker going off on this soliloquy. Also, I never knew how wild it would be to hear Harley say Pudding-chan. I'm that's so, because I've never heard anything DC or even superhero related wise. Anything aside from anything that is just straight up superhero related in an anime, just superhero anime. But I've never heard a superhero Japanese dub for anything. I've never heard DC or Marvel in a Japanese dub. So it's kind of wild. Like I said, hearing Pudding-chan, you know, because I was curious to see if they were going to do the Mr. J. How would they go about translating that, Japanese wise? But it's they stuck with pudding, so I'm okay, probably makes it a little easier on you. But obviously opening, like I said, with a literal bang, death and destruction all over the place. Waller having her cool anime moment of some glass, a piece of metal comes flying and she stands completely still and it cuts her face and she's nah, keep going. I'm okay. Yo, God, it's so anime. I love it so much. Because you get to just have it's just the My Adventures with Superman thing of you get to lean into the anime-isms that you're oh, it's so good seeing these characters in this story with its anime mannerisms and elements stuff. So Harley stopping at a bar, which I'm assuming those were Argus agents, the bar they stopped at, considering stuff popped off, Katana showing up, so I guess she already works for Waller. Which is interesting, her and Harley having their little duel. Because I'm I don't know, despite having seen a live action Katana twice, because she was in Arrow, specifically season 3 of Arrow. I don't remember if she ever popped up post that. But yeah, that, and obviously she was played by Karen Fukuhara in Suicide Squad. But I don't know enough about her circumstances in the comics. Like, is she an anti-hero? Like, is she always associated with Waller, or did she kind of get, like, has she already been, like, Suicide Squadded, where she got brought in, and so she's working for Waller, or does she always work for Waller? That's what I'm curious. Kind of like how Slade works for Waller in, oh god, in what's its face, in My Adventures with Superman. I always know Slade is kind of his own person, so him working for Waller was kind of interesting. So I don't know if that typically happens in the comics or not, but either way, yeah, Harley gets outclassed, but I mean, it's still kind of nice seeing like that stylized anime fight between them. Got her classic bat, but she lost it, which is like, oh, that's a shame. She's got to definitely end up with a new version or something, like a more magic enhanced version she gets made for herself. Like, it has to happen at some point in time. Like, she needs the bat. It's so intrinsic to that character nowadays, you know? So I mean, not unless she ends up pulling out like the giant mallet. They might go the mallet route in the Isekai world. So we'll see which route they go with that. But it's like she doesn't have her bat because she lost it, and freaking Katana just knocked her out. And it's like, yeah, Joker got away. Which I was thinking, I was like, I don't think he's involved in this, because I did see the cast. I skimmed the cast a little bit when I was looking up, and I found out this was a TV show, not a movie. I was like, oh, and I saw like it was just like a single shot of like all the characters. I was like, oh, I didn't take a good enough look. I knew like Peacemaker and Deadshot, but I wasn't really paying attention to the rest of the squad other than like Harley. So. And the next time, well, no, I was about to say, like, it kind of gives me a little bit of the Harley Quinn animated series vibe, where it's like half a year later, Argus is, Waller's putting together her Suicide Squad, which made me almost go like, wait, does she not already have the Suicide Squad together then, if she's kind of putting them together now? So I guess like maybe her attempts to go into that. I mean, once again, that was 6 months later, so she probably already sent people in, like a Katana and other people, and she needed to send in other people. So Harley gets like tased and thrown into the world. That moment, her passing into that other world, at first I was almost thinking like, well, it's a gate to another world. So I'm like, there's no way they're like VRing this like a dot hack type of situation. Like they're like, I don't think they're doing it that way. It was like they are literally going to that world, but it was almost like very Sailor Moon transformation to look. So thought that was interesting. But when she wakes up, she's next to Deadshot, and she's like, oh my god, I wanted to wake up to Tweety's voice, because they're dropping all the things under the WB umbrella, because she what was the other thing she referenced? I was like, oh god. Oh yeah, because she was like, yeah, I've watched every season of Game of Thrones. Later on, they referenced Lord of the Rings. Like Warner Brothers has some Lord of the Rings rights. They don't have all of them, but they have some rights to the Lord of the Rings franchise. But then like the handsome actor that was across from them, my immediate thought was like, wait, I was like, Clayface? Because I was like, no. I was like, but who else would he be? He's like, because they're like, oh, you probably seen me on TV. I was like, I was like, the only actor I know amongst the villains is like Clayface. I was like, interesting. And I do like the design that they have for Clayface in this. I also love that he's like a very like, what was the title card said for him? Like he's like a very low level actor or something like that. Because I think it depends on the comic runs and stuff over the years and different eras. But I think the actor thing has not always been something for Clayface. I think probably more modern versions, like the animated Harley Quinn series, really leans into the thespian actor and stuff like that. But I'm sure that's a more modern take on Clayface. And I say modern, that could mean anything, considering like that could be something that came up in the 80s or even earlier type of thing. But I think that wasn't always the case with Clayface's story. And to be fair, he's also like freaking like the characters changed quite a lot over the years, of different versions of stuff. So, and then obviously we have Peacemaker himself, and he's just like, yeah, he wants to cover his face because he's like, it kind of like he can't let people know his identity for the purposes of trying to do his job. The Rick Flag stand-in, I was like, oh, Adam. It's like, oh, you seem like you're kind of a nobody. So, oh, never mind, you're dead. So I was like, okay, because at first I was like, I don't think that's going to be Rick Flag, but it's like, nope, it's not. It's some random handler named Adam who immediately dies when the helicopter crashes. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So they immediately get thrown into the muck of, oh my god, what is going on? At first, like, Clayface is like, oh my god, it's a set and stuff, and then things pop off when they're literally fighting giant orcs and stuff. But the moment blood splatters on her face, Harley's like, oh, bet, I know what time it is. And it's like, you're not on my side, let's go balls to the wall. And then King Shark busts out, which, playing into the Suicide Squad, he's an idiot, which I think is so interesting. Because prior to, like, the Suicide Squad movie, the versions of, like, King Shark I'm familiar with are, like, the Flash version. That was just being a metahuman driven by, like, those shark instincts. The intelligence, I don't really remember that ever really coming up. To be fair, King Shark only popped up, like, a handful of times across the entire show. And obviously, like, the Harley Quinn animated series has him being super smart. He's a genius. So I don't know if, like, him being kind of an idiot is, like, I thought that was just something for the Suicide Squad, but it could be like, no, that's might be typical of some versions of King Shark in the comics. I keep saying King Shark. I'm not saying King Shark. I'm not emphasizing that K. So yeah, he rips and chews and eats. Harley grabs a spear, starts twirling, kicking ass. Peacemaker is like, what was it, bloodbath style or something, going fisticuffs against everybody. Clayface, he dabbles a little bit while he's shapeshifting, like you see, like his like hand glows a little bit, so he kind of inadvertently activates some magic and ends up attacking them. And then Deadshot, locked and loaded, ends up headshotting the boss of the orcs. They run away, so it's like, wow. And then these knights show up and they display magic. And I love that out of anyone, who is it that figures things out? It's freaking Clayface being like, oh my god, I know what this is. This isn't a set and stuff like that. He's like, the fact of the matter is, like, orcs and dragons and warriors and knights and magic and swords and magics and bows and stuff like this. Oh my god, we're basically in Alice Adventures in Wonderland. And then Harley's like, oh, the book? And he's like, oh, but a more pop cultural term, we've been isekai. I was like, so Clayface knows what isekai is, which I was like, so that kind of means canonically speaking in this universe, he's an anime fan. And once again, that's what I was talking about earlier in the recording, like, oh, like, there's so many stories that are obviously isekais that existed before the term isekai. It's just kind of like, because obviously, like, the whole, like, oh, you get transported to another world, you're kind of like, oh, you might be like oh, you got Alice in Wonderland, or you got, like, Wizard of Oz type of situation. But it's like, yeah, like, the new term is isekai. So that's just so fascinating that he, out of anyone there, would know that term. So that's so interesting. And he's kind of like, yeah, we're your chosen warriors, so why don't you take us to your king? And they immediately get thrown in jail. I think it's so interesting, too. Well, because they had... I don't know how that whole situation worked with the Suicide Squad movies, but, like, obviously, was it Bloodsport? Is that his name? Idris Elba's character is like, Bloodsport, kind of... he ended up replacing Deadshot. I don't know if that's just like Will Smith just didn't want to come back, or whatever that reason was. They kind of just basically made it a different character. But like, they're giving Peacemaker and Deadshot the Bloodsport and Peacemaker relationship from like the Suicide Squad, where they're butting heads. They've got differences of opinions on like things, because obviously he's all about peace and stuff like that, but it's like, do you really know what's going on with this mission? And he's super quiet about it. It's like, he's probably going to pull a similar thing from the Suicide Squad, where he knows the truth of what his mission is, but he's got to keep it low-key, because he's like, oh, I'm the true agent working for Waller on this, and it's for the greater good. So, because their equipment is back in the helicopter, so I guess he just doesn't... I mean, it makes you wonder, like, are they going to use the multiple helmet things from Peacemaker? Because I'm even curious, like, once again, James Gunn is a comic book nerd, so I could definitely see that being a thing. I'm considering how comic accurate a lot of elements of just the costume and stuff. The multiple helmets might be something from the comics. That might have been just some shit he spitballed for the TV show. I don't know. I don't know the comics enough to comment on that. But it's like, I am curious if they're going to do the multiple helmet things, or is it going to be like the Suicide Squad, where it's like, nah, he only has the one. Which we never actually... It just seemed like it was a regular helmet that we're aware of. We never saw any powers. That might have just been something James Gunn's like, well, I could go a little crazy. That's why I feel like it probably is something specific James Gunn might have come up with, but like I said, I could be wrong. It's just interesting that he would save it for the show and not put it in the movie if that was the case, but I don't know. very, very interesting start. It's so weird seeing these characters. And I mean, I guess because I've never seen like the Batman, the Ninja Batman one. I never saw that, so it's so interesting. And like I said, I already got that to a smaller extent, but like you're getting it with like My Adventures of Superman. It's like very like anime style towards like these properties, which is so. I mean, to be fair, it's like taking it back further. It's like, well, what about Teen Titans? Like the original Teen Titans cartoon from like the early 2000s. It's like that had a very like heavy anime influence to like its comedy and approach. Like it had its like Americanism, like of how it was animated and stuff, but it also stylistically and a lot of like the choices made animation wise like definitely had animeisms to it too, so it's not that out of the realm, but it's like I think we're going to be getting more and more of these. It's kind of right to kind of take these stories and kind of put them in like an anime spin to them. So once again, just giving us Suicide Squad in a fantasy land and how that looked going forward. Obviously there's 2 more episodes out, so I'm excited to ultimately see where this goes. And like I said, we see the bad guys, which Katana's kicking with him. I guess like I said, it looked like Killer Croc. I just wasn't sure about the other 2. I'm like, there's no way, because I saw someone with like it looked like a canister on her back. I'm like, that's not going to be like Scarecrow or something, is it? I just wasn't quite sure about like who like the other 3 were that were there. But I mean, who's the main bad guy? I mean, assume it's the leader of this world, but it's going to be someone we're familiar with. Like, what are the surprises this series adds? Whereas, because like I said, aside from like the original teaser, I've not really kept up with this project. So like it coming out caught me completely by surprise. So I don't even know what to fully expect. Give me some anime, DC shenanigans. That's all I need from it, and we were getting that in spades. So I'm happy enough with that. So, but I'm really curious to see what they do with the story and see these character interactions in an anime style and aesthetic and vibe. So. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.